So we're looking at seeing the solution as a coordinate point. So if x equals 2 and y equals 3, you want to write that as 2, 3, as a place in space. So this is what we did in class. Use the given graph to determine the ordered pair solution of y equals the absolute value of x plus 1. And we're going to look at it when it corresponds to x equals -5. So what you want to do is you want to go and find -5 on the x-axis, which we found it right there, and you're going to want to find the point. Here's the point of the graph. When x is -5, what is y? So if we look at this graph, it looks like we went back 5 and up 1, 2, 3, 4. So when x is -5, y is 4. And so we're going to put that into our little spot there. Now what we want to do is now we want to prove it. We're going to show that the algebra works. So we're going to plug in -5 for x. So we're going to put it in right here. We're going to say -5 plus 1. Well, the absolute value of -5 plus 1 is equal to the absolute value of -4, which is equal to 4, which is what we just discovered. You could do it with a variety of points. If you want to know what happens when x is 8, which is here, you would go up and find the point on the graph, which is hidden by my little, I can't actually access it, and it would be the point 8, 9. So the graph will mirror the algebra. So then it said, well, what about when y is equal to 5? So let's go and find where y is equal to 5. And I can see here's 5 for y. We're going to make a line straight across. And you can see that when y is 5, it crosses in 2 different places. It crosses here. Let's use a pen that'll make it darker. It crosses here, and it crosses over here on the positive side. So when y is 5, what does x come out to be? Well, on this red point over here, x is at -6. And over here at the blue point, you can see that x is 4. Well, how does that play out with the algebra? Well, let's see. We get that. So we've written that the points are -6, 5 and 4, 5. Let's show with the algebra how it works. We're going to plug in 5 for y. So I just switched to the side because you're used to seeing them solved this way. So what we're saying is the absolute value of x plus 1 equals 5. Well, let's go back to our rules. Step 1, isolate the absolute value. Check, it's all by itself. Step 2, is this side of the equal sign negative? No, we're ready to proceed with our branches. So what we want to do is write this in 2 different ways. So x plus 1 is going to equal 5, and x plus 1 is going to equal the opposite, -5. And we're going to solve both of these. If we subtract 1, and we're going to do the same thing on the other equation, we're going to get that x is equal to 4, and here we're going to get that x is equal to -6, which is exactly what our graph showed us. If you're still a little confused, stay with me for this next video, but if you feel like you've got it, go and move on to the homework. But here, we're going to look at the absolute value of, we're going to do -2 times the absolute value of x. So it's this upside down v. And we're going to look at, well, what happens when x is 3, okay? So we're going to find where x is 3, and x is 3 over here. So we need to find the point. So the point that happens there, x is 3. Well, what is y? Y looks like it's -6. So it says, prove it by plugging in 3 for x. Well, let's do that. So we have an equation. So let's plug in 3. So when we plug in the 3, we're going to get to negative 2 times the absolute value of 3, which is 3. So y is equal to negative 6, which is the answer we just got. So let's try it now for when x is negative 5. Let's go and find that. So x is negative 5 is way over here. Let's cruise it down and find the appropriate spot. And we're here. So when x is negative 5, what is y? Well, it appears to be negative 10. So let's prove that that's the answer. We know that we should get negative 10. So we're going to put negative 10 here, and we're going to plug it in. We're going to say y equals negative 2 times the absolute value of negative 5. And the absolute value of negative 5 is going to come out to be a regular 5. So y is equal to negative 2 times 5, which is negative 10. So then they give like a bonus round, and they said, well, what would happen when y is equal to 2? So we need to go and do that line of y equals 2. And I know it's not really on here. Here's y equals 1. So y equals 2 would kind of be up there. And if you look, well, there's no graph there. When y is 2, we have no x's. Well, let's see how this plays out when we do the math. We're going to write y equals negative 2 times the absolute value of x. We're plugging in 2 for y this time. So we're going to erase y, and we're going to put 2 in its place. Okay, step 1 in solving an absolute value equation is isolate your absolute value. So we need to get rid of that negative 2. So negative 2 times something, we get rid of it by dividing by negative 2. And now we're going to get that negative 1 is equal to the absolute value of x. But if you remember, this is a length. And what length in the world is equal to negative 1? There isn't. This, if you remember, once it's isolated, look on the other side. And if it's negative, there's no solution. And it's because and you can see in the graph, there is no solution. There are no x's when y is 2 with this graph.